also on YouTube, is Truth or the Truth. So make sure that you go onto YouTube. Talking about YouTube, we're also streaming the live. Go search across social media, not only YouTube, Facebook, the rest of social media for TV3 Ghana. We're grateful. All of you have joined us once again. We're in for the big issues conversation right here. And we're going to just talk about the trending issue about the suspension of the Chief Justice, Justice Gertrude Torkornoo, and subsequently acting Chief Justice in place. And that is Justice Bafo-Bonny, a very distinguished man of the Supreme Court as well. And we'll take a look at the regulars now we have at the Supreme Court, but subsequently, just a day after, where are we heading? What's the process going to be like? And the main question that has dominated the platform is there any justification at all? And what is the suspended Chief Justice going to go through subsequently for us to get some insight into this? And then, well, for all this and past, get an end. What does it mean also for posterity? So we're here to speak to the issues, what the precedent we're setting. And, well, you used to work with the Customs, Excise and Preventive Service, a division of the Ghana Revenue Authority. Francis Stevenson, good morning to you. Great man, and always a delight to always have you right here. We have our regulars, and so let me just introduce to you the Chief Executive of the National Petroleum Authority, legal practitioner as well. And I'm sure his rest is also on the subject of practice in court, but yeah, okay, he's still director of the legal directorate of the NDC as well. He hasn't abdicated his position yet, suspended it, or perhaps decided to recuse himself. So, Edward Tamaklu, good morning to you. Thank you for joining us as well.
Good morning, my brother. Good morning, my good friend. And briefly, let me just wish one of the respected and very distinguished chief of this country, the Agbogbo Mafia, Toby Apede. Today happens to be his birthday.
Yes.
So, Toby, once again, happy birthday.
Okay.
We can only wish you well and ask for God's blessing and greater wisdom for you as you continue to steer the affairs of this country. We are hugely indebted to you, Toby.
All right. And that also is coming from Francis Stevenson, formerly of SEPS, of the GRA as well. And wish you all the best, Toby Apede. Also, I call him the chair for the Common Sense family of Ghana's governance, but he's with the Movement for Change. He's also an entrepreneur, businessman, so to speak. And Solomon also is here. Solo, how are you?
Good.
I hadn't encountered you for a couple of weeks. You traveled.
I traveled and
welcome back.
Thank you very much.
And since then you've been blasting.
I've not been, but then let me associate myself with the birthday wishes to Togbe. I wish him long life, and also the birthday of a friend of mine. Maybe you would do it better for me. Ebu Bokman, his son, his firstborn, who is in Addis Adel. The name is very long, so sometimes I'll rather leave it to you.
So let me
do it for him.
Nana Kojo Amonu Nyansinyi Bokman, 18 years of Addis Adel, and that's coming from Ibo Bakman, your father. All of us right here at TV3, wishing you all the best for the day. And then also Chris, all of Adenta, and Fiaunu also celebrating the birthday, wishing you all the best for the day. But look, we also will be joined by Justice Abdullahi, and he is a lecturer with the UPSA Law School, but particularly also a practitioner, so a legal practitioner. So it also serves us better when we're talking about the issues. But in the meantime, we know that the spokesperson as well as the minister in charge of communicating all things from the presidency and the president, Felix Kwatiofosu, has been responding to the sharp criticism from the minority. We'll take you through what the minority has been saying so far. And so snipers of it will be on your screens. And they say that the decision by the president, John Dramani Mahama, to suspend her ladyship, the Chief Justice, under the authority of Article 146 is nothing short of a brazen judicial coup It is also a reckless abuse of executive power and a direct assault on the judiciary and its independence. They also continue to say the move taken while legitimate legal challenges are pending before the Supreme Court also reeks of intolerable political vendetta. It is judicial intimidation. And then also they say a calculated attempt to pack the court with NDC sympathetic justices as openly promised by President Mahama in Akosombo in 2023. More importantly, they make some conclusions there that the president's actions confirm what many have long suspected, that is not about accountability, but about raw political control. They also insist that his public declaration at Akosombo that he intends to, in effect, balance the judiciary by appointing NDC-aligned judges, so to speak, exposes the ulterior motive behind the sudden rush to remove the Chief Justice. But we do know that by Article 146, the President made the argument through his spokesperson that he only, based on what the Constitution says, just forwarded those petitions to, again, the Council of State. And a determination of prima facie by the Council of State then also meant the President needed to take a decision, because it implied, and so that implication that investigations would have to be undertaken once a prima facie has been established to determine whether, right or wrong, the Chief Justice committed acts or omissions while in office, or flouting due regulations as enjoining his office. But it's a difficult situation for everyone as a country. But again, that's why precedents are always set in every democratic dispensation. As a legal practitioner, having followed this as well, Eduji Tamaklo, would you say that the minority are right, that President John Dramani Mahama is on a political vendetta, a coup, so to speak, flouting due regulations, and that power of discretion has been exercised wrongly?
Okay, so once again, I just want to thank your viewers for this opportunity. The comments from the MPP micro minority and the MPP as a whole is a calculated attempt to politicize an obvious constitutional duty that President Mahama is performing. But the reason why you'd expect that the MPP would want to politicize this obvious constitutional duty being performed by President Mahama is because of a certain fear, a certain, I'll call it, panic. Because if not, has President John Dramani Mahama done anything today outside the scope of the 1992 Constitution?
How do you mean, Eduji?
The answer is no. President Mahama has not done anything outside what the Constitution requires him to do. As we speak, we have only one President of the Republic. President John Dramani Mahama does not share that position with Afenyo Makin. He doesn't share that position with Atachia. He doesn't share that position with lawyer Dakum or Bafwewa. There is only one President of the Republic at any time. And today, it is President John Dramani Mahama. Article 146 of the 1992 Constitution is clear as to the procedure, what ought to be done. Has President Mahama done something contrary to what the Constitution stipulates? No. Now, the 1992 Constitution envisaged that we'll get to this point. And let me tell you this. So? You see, in the past, in drafting this 1992 Constitution, it mirrors our history. Because Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, the record says, that when he was not happy with the acquittal of Tawi Adamafio and co, decided to remove judges that he was not happy with. And so when we're crafting the 1992 Constitution, we place in it elaborate procedures. If there is an intention to remove a superior court judges. Thankfully, post-1992, we have the benefit of how judges have been removed. Superior court judges from high court to Supreme Court judges, there is a process for their removal. In fact, based on the Anas investigation, Tiger Eye or something,
some high court judges
were removed. Incidentally, it was under President Mahama, if you remember. Yeah. Now you see, if you read the Constitution, Article 146, it says, a justice of the Superior Court or chairman of so and so shall not be removed from office except for stated misbehavior, incompetence, or grounds of inability. Now listen, this way is even more profound. He said that you cannot remove a justice of the Superior Court except in accordance with the procedure specified in this article. So you notice that all the MPP lawyers combined, so far none of them is able to say that President Mahama had breached any provision of the Constitution. Because you see, what distinguishes a good leader from others is who his advisors are. President Mahama had the benefit of having a very matured former Attorney General as his legal counsel in the person of Marietta Brew. Now, with the benefit of such sound legal advice, together with the learned Attorney General and the lawyers he has, he had decided to stick to what the Constitution says. It's not an amateur. No. So what President Mahama has done is to follow the strictures of the Constitution. Now, Article 146(3) says, if the President receives a petition for the removal of a justice of the other than the Chief Justice, and in this case, it's the Chief Justice. So you notice that in the Constitution, there is only one person to perform that function. And that person is the President. Now, our friends in the MPP are saying that when the people or the petitioners had their petition or grounds, President Mahama ought to have shut the Jubilee House and block the airspace, block every way, so that they cannot come there and present the petition to him. But you see, there's something unique about President Mahama. Consistency. Let me tell you this. MPP member called Richard Nyama, you know him. Yeah, I know him very well. He even contested the MPP primaries, I think in Pandai. Yeah. Somewhere around 2015, 2014. Brought a petition for the removal of an appointee of President Mahama in the person of Madame Vivian Loretta Lamte, the then Shroud boss. What did President Mahama say? He didn't say, oh, this is an MPP person bringing a petition to have my own appointee removed, and so I will close my door. No. He took possession of the petition from Richard Nyama, went through the process, and eventually, you know what eventually happened? A committee, just as this committee, was set up by the then Chief Justice, so far, that's George Nawood. And this is what the letter says. That's the 5th January 2015. Mr. Richard Nyama, petition for the removal from office of the Commissioner for the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice under Article 146. So President Mahama, consistent with his previous conduct, where an MPP person brought a petition to have the then Shroud board removed, complied with the Constitution. And listen, when everything was done, the then Chief Justice put up a 5-member committee comprising His Lordship Justice Eni Yeboah, His Lordship Justice Bennett, Her Ladyship Justice Mariama Owusu, one Edwin Barnes, and Brigadier General Fuseni Idrisu. So it was this 5-member committee that investigated the complaint against Madame Loretta Lamte. And in fact, the lawyer for Richard Nyama at that time was my own senior Samson Ladi Ayeneni. They went through the process, gave their recommendation, and President Mahama, pursuant to Article 146, caused to be removed.
What's your point with this?
The point I am making is that President Mahama has demonstrated consistency and fidelity to the law. President Mahama has not done anything. Now let's juxtapose that by parity of reasoning to the instant petition. We are being told that 3 petitions came relative to her ladyship, the Chief Justice. When President Mahama received the petition, right, do you know what he did? His communication minister, information minister, the Honorable Felix Kwachi, put out in the public that the president is in receipt of this petition for the removal of her ladyship. Pursuant to that, he gave an indication that the Council of State will be informed so that the council together with him will perform the constitutional responsibility when said petitions are removed. Subsequent to that, the MPP, led by the Member of Parliament for Tafo Pankrono, Vincent,
also a legal practitioner,
and the former Attorney General, Godfrey Debu Adame, rushed to the Supreme Court. Relief 1 had to do with the fact that her ladyship, the Chief Justice, was not notified. And for some of us, we say, how did Asifua become aware that her ladyship was not notified? Was she in communication with her ladyship?
How did you deduce that?
No, because Relief 1...
put the cat before the horse?
No, Relief 1. Not long ago, there was a letter from her ladyship, the Chief Justice, copying the Association of Judges and Magistrates and some other people, requesting from the president copies of the petition for her response. President John Dramani Mahama properly advised, proceeded. In fact, her ladyship wanted 7 days. President Mahama says, no, I will even give you 10 days so that you can prepare your whatever response you have adequately. My information shows that her ladyship didn't responded to the petition. She actually filed a supplementary response. Now, having filed a response and a supplement, clearly what that suggests is that even per her own conduct, is that she had joined issues with the petitioners. So usually in law, like we always say in the judicial court process, when you join issues with maybe a plaintiff or whatever, you are simply saying that this matter should be set down for trial because there are controversies. That is the only responsibility of President Mahama at this stage. To just demonstrate that there are controversy. And so when the petition came and she got the opportunity to respond, she put together response and documents. That is not the responsibility of President Mahama. It is not for President Mahama to interrogate those documents. All President Mahama is supposed to do at this stage is to make a determination that is the petition frivolous or not. How can a frivolous petition get a response and a supplementary response with documents attached? So at this point, all President Mahama had done together with the Council of State is to say that, look, this is not frivolous. And to the extent that it is not frivolous, I am setting up together with the Council of State, having been properly consulted, a situation where, they are now going to investigate the merit or otherwise. At this point, President Mahama has not said her ladyship, the Chief Justice, is guilty. All he said is that the petition had met a certain minimum threshold. It is gone beyond frivolity. So for that matter, let a panel that the Constitution itself says should be done. Now, with His Lordship Justice Gabriel Puaman, Justice Asiedu, one from the military. As the lady by Dalubu. Yes. Then there's a professor, and then Domolevo. Domolevo has distinguished himself in this country. Very respected person.
You're saying particularly because there could be content about misappropriation of funds? Or
no, from all indication, the understanding is that portions of it relates to the Auditor General and his findings. And to the extent, who better appreciate the issues of audit than the former Auditor General? And so, as we speak now, what President John Dramani Mahama had done It's basically to just comply with the 1992 Constitution. But you see,
just to make this intervention, while that is complying with the tenets of the 1992 Constitution, I've heard the Member of Parliament for Minsha Sound, who is also a legal practitioner, by the way, Nana J. Bafwewa, who insists that discretionary power that the president exercises or is exercising, perhaps he shouldn't have been exercising that without a constitutional instrument in place, etc. Even though it's been exercised also before by former presidents.
You see.
How is that a justification?
You see.
Or not?
You see, sometimes people like Bafwewa and others betray a certain lack of, what shall I say? I want to be careful with my choice of word.
I don't understand. You're saying they're exhibiting double standards?
No, I think they have gone beyond the issue of double standard. Selective amnesia.
You've listened to him, haven't you?
Desperate blindness. You understand? Bafwewa has been a lawyer in this country. On what basis did President Mahama remove, what shall I say, Madam Lamte? On what basis did Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo remove Charlotte Osei? But you see, they want to throw dust into the eyes of Ghanaians. Article 146(11) says, quote, the president may at any time revoke a suspension under this article. More importantly, if you look at the federal constitutional provisions, it says that where a petition has been referred to the committee, the president may, in the case of the Chief Justice, acting in accordance with the advice of the Council of State, by a warrant signed by him, suspend the Chief Justice. Complete. That's what the law says.
And that's where we are currently.
And that is where we are.
Why is that important for the suspension to happen?
No, because the Constitution envisaged that should happen. There is a possibility of that happening. So the Constitution is provided for it.
So that...
And President Mahama, as we speak, has just complied with that constitutional provision without more. Now, they confuse something. You see, the Supreme Court, in the case of Ransford France and the Attorney General, where the Constitution in Article 47 says that the Electoral Commission may create new constituencies, you understand, and now came back to Article 296 to say that if you look at Article 296, the constitutional provision, and it's important that I reference it because it's public education. If you look at Article 296, and this is where they want to confuse people by saying that President Mahama has done something contrary. Okay, here. It says, listen, where in this Constitution or any other law, discretionary power is vested in any person or authority, that discretionary power shall be deemed to imply a duty to be fair and candid. So far, President Mahama has said, look, give her the petition. Let her file her response. She even filed a supplement. So how was that capriciously done? He said, the exercise of that discretionary power shall not be arbitrary, capricious, biased, either by resentment. What has President Mahama done? The petitioners are not NDC members. In fact, in the case of Loretta, it was a known MPP person, including Frank Anodon. President Mahama didn't say go away. He took it, acted on it, and even removed his own appointee. Now, this is where it gets interesting. He says, quote, where the person or authority is not a judge or other judicial officer, there shall be published a constitutional instrument or a statutory instrument, regulation, that are not inconsistent with the provision of this Constitution. This is where they raise the issue about President Mahama. And that because the constitutional provision on suspension says the President may, it means that the President they should have been published a CI or a statutory instrument to regulate how that may function appearing in Article 146 should be. No. You see, so the Supreme Court clarified that matter in Ransford France. Because the conversation in Ransford France was that because the EC had not brought up an instrument to show how to create new constituencies, the new constituencies that were created in 2012, everything done under it were unconstitutional. In the reasoning of His Lordship Justice Databa then raised the issue of nuclear meltdown and said that no, That is not the reasoning. If not, any time the president wants to exercise a discretion, it means that he must come up with a constitutional instrument. That is how Ranford France in that matter, the new constituencies in 2012 were created. Because they wanted that entire CI set aside. And I remember it was my lecturer in company law, Jogati, who was the lawyer for Ranford France in that matter. And so I think it must be very clear that the Supreme Court itself has spoken authoritatively on this matter. It doesn't work that way. If not, any time the president wants to exercise a discretion, he would be required to provide a constitutional instrument to guide that. And that is where His Lordship Justice Datiba said, no, if that is the case, even the functioning of executive power will grind to a halt. At this point, there is only one person who can exercise that power under Article 146, and that person is President John Dramani Mahama. So everything that has been done so far is within the confines of the 1992 Constitution.
Solo, in the court of public opinion is the very copious commentary that so-called this is an NDC MPP matter and that there has been predetermined based on public narrative, so to speak. But it looks like you go by what the research findings are from Musa Dankwa on whether the public thinks that based on public opinion, she should be suspended or should go through all these processes. The public seem to have a certain perception. Why have we as a country arrived at this, where we seem to have a certain lack of trust, whether it's for the Chief Justice or the assigns of the judiciary? And in this very matter, it looks like public opinion certainly is not with the Chief Justice.
Thank you very much, Roland. Let me say that the way and manner the Chief Justice has conducted herself is also feeding into why the public wants her out. Nobody must make any mistake that the Chief Justice and the public doesn't want her out. That shouldn't be people's perception. I mean, those that want her in are no more than those that want her out. If I were the Chief Justice by now, Roland, I would be negotiating my exit from the seat.
No, but you cannot make those conclusions, Solomon. Also,
she should
negotiate her own exit.
She must not be listening to those young guys and those hot-headed people around her who are leading her astray.
They are leading her astray?
There was a Supreme Court judge in the United States by name Abby Fortas. In 1966, Abby Fortas took $20,000 from a foundation. At that time, there was no law in the U.S. that mandated any Supreme Court judge to disclose whatever anybody gives you. Now, Abby Fortas was appointed by Lyndon Johnson, a Democratic president. The members of Congress from both Democratic Party and the Republican Party said, because of that singular act, Abby Fortas must be impeached.
So, but that's the U.S. Why are you?
Abby Fortas processed the situation and resigned. Until date, his credibility is intact. It's not every battle you fight. But let me say that we are all being taken on a roller coaster. Is the Chief Justice not a public officer? Is the President not a public officer? Why is everything about this whole removal in secrecy? Why? What is so special about it? Why is the public not being able to know the content of that petition? And I believe that the constitutional review must begin to take a critical look at why we must be making some of these.
That some of these actions, the constitution should be amended to make it
very open. So by now, if you all knew the petition, the content of the petition that was sent to the president, and the response from the Chief Justice, wouldn't it make the debate or argument so easy for everyone? I believe beyond that, the removal of the Chief Justice must also be taken. The constitutional review must take note of that and take it away from the president and give it to a second chamber. You know, the movement for change, we were pushing for a second chamber where the Council of State will be moved from there to a second chamber. They will be responsible for the appointment of IGPs, Chief of Defense Staff.
And that composition will be elderly statesmen, people from all.
Absolutely. So that the president is not being drawn into this political arena. What our brothers in the MPP are trying very hard to do is to make it a political football. And unfortunately, my brothers are also falling for it.
I don't understand.
But
You mean
also,
the NPP rather is
they
the
are
entity?
pushing to make it NPP, NDC. When it becomes so, then the public loses interest in it, and then the corporate is left off the hook. Who said the Chief Justice cannot be removed? Who said that? How special is the Chief Justice?
You didn't hear from Gloria Foibudu.
I was so disappointed.
I've known her for the past 25 years.
You know the problem.
And she does indicate, because she's also a law lecturer, not only with GIMPA, but also the University of Ghana
But
Law
what
School.
they didn't tell us is that she was an MPP aspirant.
Well, that's true.
So it's important we read it.
I understand that. But Solomon, the argument she made was that, well, we have provisions in the Constitution, and because, well, there are provisions for actions to be taken, but the fact that it's the Chief Justice, the head of the judiciary, is not everything that you implement for the respect of the institution.
I'm sure Madam Gloria Oforibudu, after that program, going back to the house and watching it again, given the opportunity, would not repeat the thing that she said, in all honesty, because what she said was totally unnecessary. That the constitutional provision is there for the beauty of it. It's for tourist attraction. And
tourist attraction?
Absolutely. That's
and that has to be implemented?
You say, it just
ornamental.
Ornamental. What is this?
She says she's the head of the judiciary. It's how
can she say that? If she go back to watch the video, what she herself said, she will come back.
No, but Charlotte said, was she the head of a unit committee?
I am so sorry. No, but the point is that, you see, Madam Gloria, I don't know why she wants to go and carry this cross. It's too big for her. Please, let us be serious with matters in this country. And I don't know, Edwin, when you people go to the law school, why? How are you lectured? Because on a simple matter, this constitution, when you take it from me. You don't need a lawyer or anybody to explain this constitution to you.
That one I disagree.
Which one? Anyway, if anybody can interpret this constitution, the only people qualified to do so are the British, because it's in English. And that is not your language. So if that's what you people want to tell us. The constitution says the Chief Justice can be removed based on incompetence and misbehavior. And that to do so, someone must petition. As we speak, someone has petitioned. The president's job is to confer with the Council of State. The composition of the Council of State is about 31 members. Is that not the case? We have lawyers, we have former Chief Justice, we have a former Chief of Defense Staff, Inspector General, Chiefs. This one, I was taking a look at the composition. A lot of Queen mothers and
but even in their private life, they also are achievers.
Absolutely.
No, but you even look at the composition now. You have Betty Modidris.
Yes.
Dua Jaho. Mohammed Mumu.
Yes.
Vida Kotobanfo.
Yes.
A retired Supreme Court judge.
Yes.
So far,
a Chief Justice.
Yes.
A retired Justice.
Yes.
IGP. All these individuals compose. How can I sit here and say I am wiser than them? The arrogance of our MPP friends is so nauseating.
Let's
me away from this.
I'm a woman for change here. Let me say that the Council of State says on the face of the petition, there is a question to answer by the Chief Justice, the embattled Chief Justice. And the Chief Justice agrees. That's why she has responded. So now we need to go into the matter. And that's why I'm saying that if we were going to be treated to being the whole proceedings being open to the public, I tell you, after this business, corruption will cease in every institution that we are talking about. She must not listen to those around him who are pushing her.
All right.
And the government of the day, together with all those that are concerned, must have an open arm policy that if this woman today rise that she has resigned, we will do a proper negotiation backstage so that she will have a safe landing. Listen to what Abby Fortes said in his resignation letter. He said, so far as I'm concerned, the welfare and maximum effectiveness of the court to perform its critical role in our system of government are factors that are paramount to all others. If the Chief Justice so wishes, if she really cares about the institution that she is leading and wants it formidable, she must not take us to the path of destruction. Now, you will listen to a lot of lawyers and they are not speaking law. Interestingly.
They are not speaking law?
Anytime you hear a lawyer speak grammar, or emotions, that means there is no case. He has no case.
If they speak emotions and grammar, they have no case?
They have no case. If they had case, they would have been quoting the relevant provisions in the Constitution.
This is what the MPP says. It says it's a coup
from head
d'etat.
to toe.
It's a personal vendetta.
Yes, quote me any legal provision or constitutional provision that they raised in their press release, and let's discuss it. Were they able to raise a single one?
So what are you saying?
No constitutional
They have no
provision.
basis. They are only doing politicking. And this one is politicking. They are tricking the system.
Politics?
Politics, pure one. Because they want to get someone to revolve around. They want to create confusion in the system. But here, I hardly praise any president of this land, because I believe that we did not beg you to be the president. You came to beg us. But let me here praise President Mahama. That up to this stage, he has behaved within the laws of the land. Nothing he has done that is not captured in the Constitution. From head to toe.
You was only following due process?
Following due process. So how can I fault him?
If you remember, Akufo-Addo in the Charlotte Osei said he was just a conveyor belt. You remember?
Yeah, I remember that.
And when Charlotte Osei even demanded copies of the petition through her lawyer, Tadio Solo, they came back through Eugene Ahin, the presidential Gongon Bita at that time, saying that no, there is no such thing, and that she will have that benefit at the committee.
Absolutely, you remember.
Even President Mahama had been extremely generous in compliance with due process. Say, look, I'll give you 10 days to respond. How come that they are not speaking to these issues? Okay. Cleverly, you, and like he had pointed out, you notice that. You said you notice that the MPP is no longer.
You want to bamboozle your way here.
They are no longer.
You want to use your position as the MPA board to Nobody is going to allow that on this platform.
Okay, so conclude from you on this matter. Solomon, I've yielded back to you.
The president has behaved within the confines of the law.
Even though he gets criticism from the MPP?
Well, the MPP, they are looking up to something just to make noise. They have still not recovered from that hefty defeat. And that is what people must understand. Either than that, how can a lawyer be only quoting grammar?
I'm surprised because you were a former member of the MPP.
That is why I said that this is Nana People's Party. If it were a new patriotic party, they would be quoting law, constitutional provisions.
The Roches.
Absolutely. But now it is emotions and it is grammar. But you see, interestingly, these petitions are supposed to be secret. Is that not the case? What petition do they have to say? Or which petition are they holding? That is informing their decision that is political persecution and so on and so forth. Is it the case that the Chief Justice has leaked the petition to them?
How do you mean?
Because
I don't understand.
As we speak, do you have a copy of the petition?
No, I don't.
Do I have a copy?
Do you
have a copy? No, so, which petition are they looking at to be coming out with all manner of statements?
You mean which petition are they speaking to?
Absolutely. So it means, because for Vincent Desefwa and Gofredami to run quickly to the court, it means someone had leaked.
In fact, they relief one.
You understand?
They relief one.
And how can they do that? That's why I'm saying that the Chief Justice, the embattled Chief Justice, must not allow herself to be the center of attraction for the negative reason. Because if leakages appear, her side is leaking, and the government is also benevolent to leak to us, the other side, and we begin to diagnose the issues, maybe it will not be pleasant. It will not be pleasant at all. But the Constitutional Review Committee must take all the things that I'm saying into consideration.
And make all these proceedings public.
It has to be public. Ever since we started making the election petition public, have you heard any noise anywhere?
Or even other important cases of public.
It has to be public.
Well, I have Justice Abdullah. He's also a legal practitioner, also lectures the law. And as far as this related matter is concerned, my first question to you, Justice Abdullah, will be, is there a bad precedent being set, or we've had other incidents so related, maybe, so to speak, in removing such individuals, heads of independent bodies, etc., as enshrined in the 1992 Constitution, and so necessarily it won't be a bad precedent?
Indeed, thank you, Roland. I do not think that there has been anything done on that is adversely against the interest of the CJ. Indeed, I'm on record to have said that this is the first time we have had a president who has been magnanimous and quite transparent with the entire procedure that has been adopted for the removal of the Fiji. Because we've had several instances, indeed, under other presidents, that we didn't find this level of transparency and openness in the entire arena of the removal of the Fiji. And I think I heard my brother Tamaklo quoting some of them. And so really relating this to all the other ones, particularly Charlotte Osei and even the existing CJ removal process that was triggered by Professor Sari, one can easily conclude that President Mahama has been quite open. He has been quite honest about the procedures. And I think he ought to be commended. But of course, that is not to say that there are no genuine problems with the entire removal processes. But that is not the fault of the president. That is the fault of the Constitution, which I have strongly recommended that we relook at the structures set up for the removal processes of all Article 79 public holders. I think we can have a better structure than what we presently have. But it's not a discussion for today. Maybe it's a discussion for another day. But having said that, I think that we are on a good course.
Ms. Abdullahi? Ms. Abdullahi?
And I think is going through the process with that level of transparency, the level of openness and honesty that assures all of us that nobody is after anyone. There's no mischief intended, and there's a genuine and a true petition that ought to be given the constitutional attention that it needs, and that is what is happening. So long as that message is out there, I think we would have done ourselves a lot of good as a nation by adhering to the very tenets of transparency and accountability in our body politics.
You have seen and heard the argument of the minority. Indeed, some distinguished legal practitioners within their side of the political divide. Would you say that the criticism towards the president is founded or unfounded?
I would categorically state that, first of all, law yields to natural interpretations that might be multiple-faced, and so we may not necessarily have the interpretation that you desire when you are confronted with an issue. And naturally, you may also disagree on positions of the law. There's nothing like a clear-cut case in interpretation of any provision of the law, except that there are times where you find that people are being either mischievous or absurd in their interpretations. And it is when that happens that sometimes you wonder what the intentions of these persons are. Admittedly, some of my colleagues on the MPP side are very fine legal brains, and these are people who are respected in the legal profession. But when it comes to this particular issue, you wonder what is motivating some of the comments that you hear. It's quite difficult to appreciate the basis of some of the claims and some of the interpretations and some of the spins that they are putting on the law. It's very difficult to appreciate some of them. But then again, sometimes you have to admit that constitutional matters sometimes are bedfellows with politics. And so you can never delink one from the other at times. And so you should expect some of these mischievous interpretations and sometimes diabolic interpretations of because we do politics with law, and so we should admit and move on from that.
Okay. Aduji Tamaklo, we have a former president of the Ghana Bar Association. Indeed, had served on the Council of State, subsequently had performed other roles within the structure of the judiciary, Sam Ukujito. And he says that this is a sharp criticism, and The question now, of course, is that when you suspend a Chief Justice, the signal that is sent out to the international community is quite serious. I can assure you that a lot of investors will withhold their investment from your country by virtue of that kind of question. For somebody of his kind and experience speaking this way, should be taken seriously. How do you respond to that criticism that is unprecedented, shouldn't be done, so to speak, in the Fourth Republic?
What name did you mention?
Sam Okujeto, the distinguished legal practitioner.
Was it the lawyer, that's the senior lawyer who, after a judge had found the processes leading to the suspension of Sosu's license, when the judge set it aside, he went attacking the judge? Is that the man talking? There are some people with the greatest respect, we should put padlock on their mouth. Was it not on the Council of State that advised Nanado to appoint Apiahine as the Electoral Commission member? Is it the one talking? Please, please, please. You see, we've accorded a lot of people with great respect, and they shouldn't take that for granted, with the greatest respect. Reputation,
Ghana's reputation, international community. What's the counter-argument?
There's no such thing. What investors want to see is a president, okay, who will comply with the constitutional dictates. You see, what investors are worried about is that the president has a case before a judge. Listen carefully. And the person transfers a judge arbitrarily. Look at the Opuni matter, where His Lordship Justice Anoche Jima had made a finding that because he is taking over from Honyenuga, there should be a de novo trial. And because of that, for whatever reason, he was immediately transferred to Kumasi. That's what investors are worried about. What investors are worried about is when a High Court judge is deciding a matter, he goes on vacation. By October, when he's supposed to start the matter, he is transferred to Sunyani. That is what investors are worried about. And you see, Senior Sam Okujeto, he was on the disciplinary committee. He didn't hear some of these things. Situations where High Court registrars get transferred to district courts for no apparent reason. That is what investors are worried about.
They told you that?
I am telling you.
For no apparent reason?
That is what investors are worried about. Look, you see, they shouldn't allow people to open the Pandora box. No, 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 no. In fact, the silence will make a lot of sense. I'm telling you.
Make a lot of sense?
Will make a lot of sense. Look, I'll tell you something that I personally went through. The Electoral Commission decided to do voter registration. Yes. If you remember, September 2023, I represented the NDC as its lawyer. We issued a writ and asked for an injunction against the EC. Do you know what happened? When we applied for an injunction, we were given a date, 17th October, which time the EC had finished its work. The same person. Now look at the situation where Afenyo Makin issues a writ in the morning by 12.
And you're talking the matter related to the issues in Parliament?
Yes. By 12 noon, a writ is issued with an application. Friday, Supreme Court judges don't sit on Fridays. Everybody knows this. By 2 p.m., 5 Supreme Court judges have been assembled to listen to Afenyo Makin's thing. And you think investors are happy? My learned senior Sam Okujeto had been in this country and saw these things happening. You see, when you grow to the point of senior Sam Okujeto, the only thing you have is truth. Because what else can you live for than the truth? Because when you get to a certain level or age in life, you speak the truth, and you speak truth to power. He saw all these things happening when he was a principal advisor of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo for 8 solid years. Look at all the rots that happened under Akufo-Addo when he was a Council of State member. And today he says what? These things will stop investors. Look, I want to even respond to a bit more serious issue. The minority says that this removal process...
Personal vendetta, intimidation, attack on the judiciary, and then lastly, a coup d'etat.
The most ridiculous one is the fact that doing this shows President Mahama wants to pack the courts. Did Akufo-Addo remove any Chief Justice before packing the courts? Because the president doesn't need the Chief Justice, really, if his intention is to pack the courts. The Chief Justice is not a principal person. All he needs is the Judicial Council. That's all. And even that one, it is on the advice. In fact, if you recall, the Supreme Court had the opportunity of litigating the matter of Richard Delasky. Yeah. And the Ghana Bar Association, when President Mahama decided to appoint His Lordship Justice Yahapao and Puaman, the Ghana Bar Association went to the Supreme Court and challenged the process that the Judicial Council advice was effectively binding on the president. The Supreme Court says no. So today, President Mahama does not need the Chief Justice if his intention truly is to pack the court. Because that is for him to do. The other thing is that they say, oh, it's a reckless abuse of executive authority. Where from this abuse? Today, if you comply with the Constitution, you are rather accused of abuse. So they want President Mahama to act unconstitutional, like the way the Supreme Court found Akufo-Addo to have acted unconstitutional in the removal of Domelevo. No. What President Mahama has, which is a benefit, is that he has sound advisors. Thankfully, President Mahama doesn't have an executive secretary who is a lawyer. Nanado had an executive secretary who is a lawyer, but told him to act unconstitutional. You remember cease and desist and the rest. We have seen things in this country before. We have survived it. 4 months into the leadership of President Mahama, you are already raising issues of reckless abuse of executive authority. Where is that abuse? Is there anything that President Mahama has done so far that is not provided for by law? No. 2. I've listened to Malene Senior Atachia. You see, sometimes, you see, we don't have short memories. Oh. You remember the famous Atachia tape?
Yeah.
Yeah. After President Mahama won the election of 2008, and I'll conclude on that. If you recall,
as Professor Mills.
Professor Mills, he was caught on tape saying that they want to injunct the Electoral Commission. And for that matter, he had spoken to the sister-in-law, the Chief Justice there, that when they go to court, they should raise an issue about the presiding judge, Justice Edward Asante, that he used to work with Cash Pro. And for that matter, he could not sit on that case. And that when they raise it, she, the Chief Justice, would transfer the case to another person. And Atachia says, what? Look, these people, sometimes they think that we have short memory. No. For the sake of peace and others, there are things that have happened. We say, no, let things go. But with the greatest respect, we are not amateurs. We know our history. The audio recording is still there with Atachia on live tape. Basically saying that there has been what do you call it? Ex-party communication with the Chief Justice there. That once this issue is raised about the learned judge, the case will be transferred from that judge to a different, in order to get a judge who injuncted the declaration of President Mills in 2008. We've gone through all this checkered history and we are quiet. It doesn't mean we don't know what has happened in this country. We have a fair idea. And so I will plead with my friends on the other side that just as they kept quiet and allowed President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo to exercise his powers under the Constitution, Article 146, in the removal of Madam Charlotte Osei, they should exercise patience. they should calm down and allow President Mahama to exercise his powers in the 1992 Constitution. I am a servant of President Mahama and the Constitution. Now, let me just conclude. At the back of the Constitution is the oath of office for the president, presidential oath. May I read it briefly?
Please do.
He said, quote, having been elected to the high office of the President of the Republic, I will be faithful and true to the Republic of Ghana, that I shall at all times preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the Republic of Ghana.
What's your point with this?
This is the oath President Mahama took. And incidentally, the oath was administered to him by her ladyship, Gertrude Tokonu. So right in front of her, President Mahama will now be doing something contrary to the constitutional dictate. That is grounds to impeach President Mahama. I am a lawyer. Why would I advise President Mahama that go and disobey what the Constitution says?
Okay. All right.
Woe betides me if I do that.
Solomon, why is it that you look at public commentary, whether it's commentary also from political scientists, governance, etc., and even some astute lawyers, they always say that the removal of Charlotte Osei opened the Pandora's box. Is that a good argument?
I don't think so. We must look at each case. It's case by case. But you see, the people you call astute lawyers, lecturers here and there, don't forget an element called interest. Everyone has an interest.
They have an interest.
A lot of interest.
The removal of Charlotte Osei, how did they seem to raise an issue about whether independent and constitutional bodies, so to speak, in this 1992 Constitution could be protected or not?
Well, let's see it this way. If these positions, the heads of these institutions, were not to be removed, or there couldn't be any occasion for them to be removed, then it wouldn't find any expression in the Constitution. So far as the Constitution captures that people of such stature could be removed, then what's the point? There is a reason why it is there. So someone occupies a position. Those that are arguing that why are you touching the Chief Justice, are they saying if the Chief Justice is incompetent, has exhibited clear misbehavior, she has to be there for what? So they shouldn't even go there. But I'm saying that people that are running the commentary, a lot of them are not doing so in the interest of the state. This is a Chief Justice who empowers judges. A lot of lawyers who are speaking. Maybe they could be affiliated with this Chief Justice. You understand? Make no mistake.
Sam Okujeto says this is bad for investors, bad reputation.
Which bad?
For the international.
When was the last time?
He's a businessman, so I'm asking you.
When was the last time Sam Okujeto became a businessman? This Chief Justice, I don't want to go in. If I tell you my own circumstances,
please tell me your circumstances.
The judges over there, there are some 2 High Court judges. Let me give you a typical example.
Please do. Solomon, also go ahead.
I will open up. Sitting here, you say, what's the name of the gentleman that said we should have gotten the regulation, the lawyer? Bafo. If there is anybody, and today I'm saying it on record, that would never make me to go back to the New Patriotic Party, then it is Bafo again. His law firm, together with this court, because of politics, on the altar of politics, I had gone for a facility from the NIB.
As a
businessman. And today I'm opening up. And this is real, live situation. You are talking about this Chief Justice.
Over 4,000 people are watching us. Please open up. Let's look at your own experience.
I went for a facility from NIB in 2016. 2016, was it Akufo-Addo that was in power? Was it MPP? It was John Mahama. I bought 10 buses of Toyota Hiace. I'm a transporter. I had finished paying NIB on the altar of politics. When we started Alan Akufo-Addo business, quickly, Ajebafo and his firm, they were...
While you were in MPP,
they were working for NIB as external lawyers. They went to court, filed that buses that were working has to be preserved. If I am owing a court, I owing a bank, and you take me to court, at the end of the day, if it is proven that indeed I was owing, would I not be made to pay the money? But the judge in the court decided to preserve the buses. For a year and a half, all these buses had been kept.
They were just parked.
In fact, your lawyer just confirmed it to me. It's okay.
They shouldn't go there.
It's okay.
And therefore, and his people,
okay.
when sometimes when we are speaking, if they know the damage that the Akufo-Addo and his people have got, during their term, I lost close to $4 million. A young man that is growing up in his business, they wanted to kill me. The only reason why I survived was that I was doing business with my wife. Can you imagine you waking up with your wife and not knowing what to do? At a point, the judge there, you said you have preserved the buses. I gave, what do you call it, the keys. I went to the court myself to see the registrar. And that registrar there, the court 10 registrar, hey, look, the student annoyed this morning.
Calm down.
Because we have a lot of things in the heart.
Investors are watching.
So the judge preserved the buses.
And you are talking about your experience.
My experience. Now.
And this was a high court?
High court. I went there and then asked, told the court that these were have parked the buses here, they should go and take the buses. And then when his people didn't go for the buses together with the court, they sat there and later filed contempt application against me. We said, what have we done? We did search at the court to even find out whether they have orchestrated or put in motion processes to even go for the buses. There was none. One fine afternoon, I went to the court with my wife, and the judge said he had ruled that I was in contempt of court, and that I had to pay 30,000 on the spot. Either than that, me and my wife were going to Isawun. Can you imagine? And this is all happening last year. I said, what is happening here? I am not a soft nut to crack. So I said, yes, I will deal with these people. We went through the motion, and they lost the case. June 2024, I won the case, and that my buses were to be released to me. Do you know what the day before his friend did? Anytime I was ready to go for my buses, they will file a stay of execution. They file frivolous applications. They will file it at the High Court. From there, they will move to the Appeals Court until there was a change of government that they stopped.
But I thought you know him personally. You all were in the MPP, so I'm surprised.
I'm telling you the wickedness. Okay. This is not law. They are talking about investors. Who is an investor more than I do? Or you think the white man coming to this country is only an investor? If you were treating the people in this country in this manner, treating a Ghanaian businessman, I had never went for any contract, not even a one city contract from the MPP government. I was doing my private business, and the cheek of it was that I was even using my money to finance the MPP at Okankwe South. Go and check Okankwe South, those that were financing them. You have not even given me a contract, and you are talking about Kujeto, talking about investors. You don't know the damage they do in the court. They should have known some of this. So they must be the last people. Let me say that John Mahama will be criticized if you go false foul of the law. But those that must be the last people to be talking about rule of law in this country must be the MPP.
Going by the experiences and your own observations as an ordinary Ghanaian, what do you think is the perception that keeps going negatively against the judiciary, and why?
The judiciary is corrupt. Let me tell you. I have dealt with them. If anybody comes to tell you, another time, there's another judge, I'll come and mention his name here. I will show you the ruling.
It's okay.
Hey, I looked at the judge and said, were you able to do this? You were conceived for 9 months and you did this?
It's okay. It's okay.
It is corrupt. Me, I'm a practitioner. I go there as a businessman. Always, if you're a businessman, your place is the court. And the things that happens there, Eduji is the lawyer, so he may not say it, but I can tell you that because of their actions and inactions, that is why I wanted this whole Chief Justice matter to be heard in camera, so that people will begin to hear this. If they open up, the number of people that will come out with their issues on this Chief Justice, it will marvel the state. So if you want us to keep it secretly, that's why I've advised her that by now she must be negotiating her exit, so that peace prevails.
You see, the reason why that the issue about exit, let me give you. There is a High Court judge who, when he realized that impeachment proceedings have started against him, resigned.
Yes.
And now the reason why he resigned was that he resigned so that he can take the benefit. Because once he retires, he will get the benefit. Now, when he resigned, the Supreme Court ruled that resignation was done to overreach the impeachment proceedings. and said that resignation was untenable.
But that's why I said negotiation.
I'm coming.
So she has to go and negotiate.
No, I'm telling you the precedent the Supreme Court has set.
I know, but I say that there has to be negotiation.
And at this point, we have crossed the Rubicon.
No, you are not the committee. You are not the president.
I'm not. No.
So let's be there.
You said negotiate. Processes have started.
Yes.
No, he said that in jest.
Yes.
Oh, negotiate.
No, he said that.
No, he repeated it. But the point I'm making is at this point, the issue of negotiation relative to exit would therefore be done to overreach the constitutional impeachment process. And I'm saying in the past, when the High Court judge realized that he was going to be impeached under Article 146, decided to resign ahead of that process. And the reason is that when you resign, you enjoy your benefits.
Yes.
If you get impeached, it affects your benefits. And so the court said, look, we can see through this whole resignation file, and that is just an attempt to overreach the impeachment process. The Supreme Court did not allow it.
All right, let me just make an intervention.
I am just saying that where in this case...
So we've crossed that hurdle. That line where...
The president, by the statement issued by the Honorable Felix Kwachi and yesterday, had constituted this committee. The issue of negotiation does not arise.
I believe that there could still be negotiation behind the scenes. I mean, we are building the country.
Behind the scene is what had created problems for this country.
But the matter has not been tried at this stage.
No, in one breath. No, hold on. In one breath, you said the entire process should be. You
have not heard it, so they can go and negotiate.
I am hoping that you're not making these assumptions or positions hold, because there's an assumption that the committee that has been set up to investigate this very matter, because a prima facie has been established against the Chief Justice, will declare guilty.
No.
Right? Okay.
No, not at all.
All right, you've made your point. Now, I have an intervention made, and this one is coming from a viewer who says, I followed the case that Eduji is citing, the Loretta Lamte case closely. So actually, after prima facie was made positively, the president was swiftly petitioned to suspend the Shraj boss. Reasons included that her continued presence in the office would affect procuring critical documentary evidence and staff as witnesses. Point made. And
the person should have also made the point that Frank Anodom, Richie Nyama, were the petitioners in that matter, ably led by their lawyer Samson Ladi, and they succeeded in getting Loretta Lamte removed by President Mahama. And so consistent with his conduct. So what exactly has President Mahama done that he has not done before? Fidelity to the law.
Okay. Now, Justice Abdullah, are you still there? Okay, we've got it. Now these are the number of judges we have currently at the court, so to speak. But more so, out of them, we have the senior most, who now has been chosen to be the acting CJ, and that's Justice Bafo-Boni. And in the absence of the main Chief Justice due to the suspension, what can you say about Justice Bafo-Boni and the rest of the composition of the court now?
I think that two things have happened here, relative. One, he's the senior most of the Supreme Court. And by law, it is not an appointment of the president. He assumed that role by operation of law, being the senior most. He assumed that role by operation of law. Nothing more, nothing else. I think it's also important. Look, my Lord Justice Bafo-Boni came to the High Court through an appointment by President Kufuor.
President John Kufuor.
President John Kufuor.
Oh, okay.
Court of Appeal by President John Kufuor. Supreme Court by President John Ajekun Kufuor.
2008.
2008. He had distinguished himself as a judge, having gone through the mill. There's a story I always say about my Lord Justice Bafo-Boni. If you recall, the trial of Mrs. Rawlings, it was before my Lord Justice Bafo-Boni, then at the High Court. And anytime President Rawlings followed Mrs. Rawlings to court, he would never sit down. He was always standing.
I see.
And so my very senior, Nana Ajay Ampofu, was then the lawyer for Mrs. Rawlings, sometimes pleading with former President Rawlings that no, this is in contempt. So he should just sit down, he will not. I mean, this is a man who had gone through the mill, distinguished himself. Groundbreaking cases, he has sat on it. He had the skill set to act. If at the end of the day, the 5-member persons who on the committee finds that there is no merit, they will give appropriate recommendation to President Mahama. And President Mahama will act on those recommendations. I recall vividly when the committee that sat on Charlotte Osei's matter, my Lord Justice Anthony Benin, my Lord Justice Agnes Doji, the late Justice Mafo Sao, Abrapia, and one woman, they sat on it. At the end of the day, they made recommendations to President Akufo-Addo that on the basis of procurement breaches, she ought to be removed as the Electoral Commission chairperson, a very critical institution of state. But it happened. There were no women association. There was no call on clergymen, traditional authorities to intervene in that process. I'm surprised that I'm reading somewhere Christian mothers of Ghana raise the issue that President Mahama should stop the impeachment process.
What's your point?
The point is, if you read the Bible, you recall Pontius Pilate. Pontius Pilate had a benefit. All he did was Elijah Mahama, conveyor belt. He said, bring me water and soap. Wash his hand. He said, go to Judea. The Judea is the 5-member committee. That is what it is. So when he saw it, he said, Christ, this is what the people say you have done. They say you're all over the place calling you the king of the Jews. He said, if that is what they say, so be it. Pontius said, look, bring me the water. There is a response from the Chief Justice, and a supplementary response as that. And so at this point, President Mahama says, let's go to Judea for the final decision to be taken.
Judea.
Whether the people want, the man that, there was an option whether to take that man or Christ.
Yes.
And the people said, no, they want Christ to be crucified. At this point, a 5-member committee, they have the power to adjudicate. And the beautiful thing with the constitutional provision is that you have your lawyer, you can actually call witnesses who will come testify, even cross-examine them. And if at the end, with the skill set his lordship, Asiedu, Justice Palmer, and thankfully, I just love the composition. President Mahama, you say, appointed Justice Palmer. President Akufo-Addo appointed Asiedu. Fair balance. And then the rest. So they will go into it, look at all the circumstances. If they find merit, ultimately, in the petition, a decision will be taken, recommendations will be made to the president, and whatever would have to happen would happen. So less people calm down. Investor community, there is no problem. Ghana is open. In fact, this is the kind of thing that investors want, rule of law and not rule of men, like we saw in the past.
Solomon, importantly, now we have acting Justice Bafo-Boni,
Yes.
but also the committee by way of the composition. What would you say, by just you being a layman, the head of the common sense family, so to speak, as I always thank you?
No, but then that is according to law. The president, after receiving or forming the committee, is supposed to suspend the Chief Justice. Yeah, he has done so. And then I think Bafo-Boni is the senior most at the bench. So it stands to reason that he can occupy it. I still maintain that the Chief Justice, embattled one, has an opportunity using men of valor in society to negotiate her exit, because it will not end well. From where I sit and how I see things, for 31 Council of State members to agree with the president that there is an issue to try, there is an issue to a question to answer, it will be very, very difficult. At the end of the day, it is about the Tokonu family. Those that are making noise behind, when there is any disgrace, there will be nowhere to be found. The name has to be protected. She is a woman, has to be protected. And so if she would listen to this advice, it will help. And this must also serve as a lesson to everyone that no one is indispensable. Even the president that is there, we can impeach him. Do you know that? So how much more the Chief Justice? And those that are saying that we should resort back to Parliament, don't we need parliamentary approval for ministers? When the president is removing a minister, does he seek parliamentary regulations? No. Once you know that you can be removed, you just have to behave properly. And going forward, the Constitutional Review Committee must also see it as an opportunity to refine our Constitution. I believe that they must take the power to remove a Chief Justice from the President's hands to a second chamber. And also even the composition. I mean, don't you think it's going to create problems that colleagues of hers, two Supreme Court judges, going to sit and she facing them? It's going to create, it doesn't sit well with me. So going forward, maybe we may not need judges from the Supreme Court to be part of the committee, and that neutrals would help. I wish everyone well, but for me, the judiciary needs cleansing, massive one. And this is where I agree with the Attorney General. I know the last time we came here, the Attorney General had promised that he was going to send Kwabena Edu Buahen the alleged $7 million matter to court by middle of April. I was going to be so heavy on the Attorney General. But with what is happening with the Chief Justice, I think they have to deal with this matter so that it can be clear for prosecutions if there is any.
No, I think that...
All right, so let me read a couple of messages.
You know, people have raised this issue that President Mahama needs the Chief Justice to be removed before the public tribunals can be established.
Yeah.
I mean, complete falsehood.
Right.
Because the public tribunals have already been established by the Constitution.
Yes.
So he doesn't need that.
Let me read some comments.
You see, it has been one lie upon the other.
Right.
Why would you want to lie?
Let me read some comments
circumstance?
and then we can close on this matter. Well, you're celebrating your birthday as well, and that's Jennifer Tete. Jennifer Ohui Tete of Smash Shipping Company Limited. Happy birthday to you, Jennifer. But we have a couple of comments. This one's coming from Moa Jemanyame, who says there should be a way the judiciary gets their own Chief Justice like the MPs, in which they among themselves make that determination, so to speak. No more the president appointing the Chief Justice, aside with Solo. Moa Jemanyame, good morning to you. Kwesi Mensah, watching us from the United States of America, says, okay, somebody says she suspended my wife's sister from office for 2 years as a registrar.
You see, now issues are coming.
But you see,
and then also
you are doing law. Are they not interdictions when they are disciplinary proceedings? Are they not? And in fact, if you recall, Justice Derry and Co. were all interdicted. In fact,
in the announced investigation.
Yes, and when they were interdicted, they even wanted their full salaries paid. The Supreme Court said no. They are entitled to only half of their salary. In fact, the judgment of the Supreme Court, I have it here, where the Supreme Court said once they were on interdiction, pending disciplinary action, they were not permitted to take their full salary.
We've come to the climax of the conversation. So we're climaxing. We're climaxing with some messages.
Okay.
So please tell lawyer Pastor Eduji that we the people of Judea, now Ghana, according to research, over 70% say the CJ should go. Neodic, ni Atukwe.
After Jesus gave you food, you still wanted him crucified.
Money. It says, money says, it looks like some lawyers need to rewrite their exams again. Well, it takes a lot of guts to be able to become a lawyer, to be truthfully. Now, this one is coming from Lawrence. Good morning to you, Lawrence, who says it's good watching live, asking important questions. And he said, I have the document concerning a land, even a reported case of Ghana police, and they were not doing anything about it. These judicial staff as well as the courts, eh? Nana Gazo, it says, Law Benkre, good morning to you, Nana Gazo. Kwame Osedanso says that the removal of the Chief Justice has been a narrative that has been ongoing for some time, particularly the removal of the CJ, the EC boss. I know that will follow, But do we think as a country we need to continue on this same path just because it happened yesterday?
No, but that's not the reason. Nobody is saying that because it happened yesterday,
These are
it should
comments.
happen. No,
These are
but you see, these are engineered commentary. And we need to respond to it appropriately. When there's a petition like it happened in the past, President Mahama does not have the power to shut down the Jubilee House.
Okay, you've made your point. Now, this one is coming from Sefha Moklu, says, the MPP today is telling us the removal of the CJ is politically motivated. Was the removal of Charlotte Osei, the EC boss back then, Christianity motivated? Animal farm on my mind. You people. Okay, and then I have this one from Sefha. Sefha says, what is the MPP's problem? They should know that the days when they thought they themselves were omniscient or omnipotent are long gone.
Sometimes you look at it and it's like
the NDC is now in power, has assumed that position. What they are doing
because he's not a Ghanaian.
Will not truncate the process. Cephas with that. And then Rena Wemming, wishing all the best for the day as well, says, can I have, all right. And, well, I have a couple more comments, so let me just quickly just go through. We have very important matters to discuss as a country. We tend to have intermittent power cuts. Galamsey needs to be tackled head-on, even though some efforts are being made by the government. And so removing the Chief Justice should not be occupying our minds. That's Osei J from Kede. Good morning to you, Osei J. And Bishop Kwabla says, we have missed Lawyer Jantwe's contributions. When does he come? Well, he comes on Friday, so make sure you tune in on Friday. And Nelson Akotia says, Hosea chapter 8:7, for they sow the wind, and they shall reap the whirlwind. He hath no standing grain, the blade shall yield no meal. If so, be it. Well, you say you understand Solo. And this one, this will be the last one I'm reading. This one is coming from Engineer Kojo Chumboafo. He says, I often don't disagree with my lawyer, Duji, but I have to agree with Solo. You don't need a lawyer to explain the Constitution to you. Indeed, let's remember the Constituent Assembly that wrote the Constitution was populated by ordinary men and women in language that wasn't legalese.
He's an engineer. Tell him that
Article 146 is very clear.
Become a lawyer.
And then he adds, tell Solo to relax. There is steam coming out of his forehead. I can even see it in the television.
Propaganda.
Please ask him, has he blown a gasket? Something can't tell.
Can you imagine?
All right. Okay. Kofi Jumon says that removing the Chief Justice is not the way to go. This is politically motivated. And then Afo Hali says the CJ is rather deepening her wounds. Which wounds? Instead of resigning quietly. Oh, how? Well, and I would say good morning to you as well. Abigail Dakum, very distinguished lady, a member of the Ghana National Association of Teachers, currently the local chairperson when it comes to Gomwa East District, and is also going for that same position in May. Abigail Dakum, fantastic woman. I wish her the best. We're supposed to take many things, but I'll also tell you about cash out. It goes where Shako star 439#, choose option 2 as many times as you can. But we also have to tell you that increase the number of tickets, okay? Become one of those lucky winners. But every day, people face different emergencies. Police emergency, fire emergency, medical emergency. You can name many of them as well. But many Ghanaians don't know their emergency numbers. And this is where this is important. Here is one you don't want to remember. And this is it. Star 770#. Yes, star 770# is the new EcoBank money emergency number. Star 770# gives you instant access to loans, fund transfers, utility payments, airtime and data purchases, and so much more, even without data. So there's no need for you to panic when you find yourself in any emergency situation where you need money. EcoBank will always come to your rescue. Dial star 770# hash now for your solutions to your emergency when it comes to money. EcoBank, the Pan-African Bank. Solo, thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry for your experiences with the courts.
Yes.
I've been at the courts myself a couple of times
You
because
are
of information purposes and things like that. And then also, Edu Jitamaklo, wish you all the best for the day.
Thank you.
All right, we're taking a break. When we come back, we have the latest from sports to all the things you can't ever think of right here on TV3 New Day. We'll be right back.
Yes, next. Hey, Nadia Benson, Asamo.